and it's by Tikkun Nefesh. Why am I afraid to dance? I who love music, rhythm, and song. Why am I afraid to live? I who love life and the living colors of earth, sky, and sea. Why am I afraid to believe? I who admire commitment, sincerity, and trust. Why am I afraid to love? I who yearn to give myself in love. Why am I afraid? I who am not afraid. Why must I be so ashamed of my strength or of my weakness? Why must I live in a cage like a criminal, defying and hating? I who love peace and friendship. Was I born without a skin that I must now wear armor in order to touch or to be touched? Each of us is capable of an unimagined greatness. Each of us is a treasure house of vital potential. Yet apprehensive love and inhibited talent pervade the expression of our being. Past failure and present fear restrict the range of our feelings and purview of our thinking. While these days of transition awaken us to the truth of what we are, they must also quicken within us the reality of what we can be. To everything, there is a season, and there is an appointed time for every purpose under heaven.
I've built walls, a fortress deep and mighty, that none may penetrate. I have no need of friendship. Friendship causes pain. Its laughter and its loving I disdain. I am a rock. I am an island. Don't talk of love. Well, I've heard the word before. It's sleeping in my memory. I won't disturb the slumber of feelings that have died. If I never loved, I never would have cried. I am a rock. I am an island. I have my books and my poetry to protect me. I am shielded in my armor, hiding in my room, safe within my womb. I touch no one, and no one touches me. I am a rock. I am an island. And a rock feels no pain, and an island never cries. Walt Simon, 1965. The culture that formed most of us, and the one we're living in now, emphasizes and celebrates the lone hero who rides into the sunset after saving the town, Marlboro Man. We hold as an ideal being independent and an individual, the self-made man. And how about these toxic cliches that we're bathed in? Real men don't cry. Boys will be boys. It's the man who has to be the one in the family to take care of the whole family. Men can't be feminist. If you can't shoot and hunt, you're not a real man. That's what I grew up with. You show your emotions, you're not really a man. Okay, I've been talking about what our culture says to men. It's the gender I know a little bit about. But it's not just the men who get told that expressing your feelings or vulnerability is a weakness. Here's a few quotes aimed at women to avoid showing vulnerability. Don't show your emotions. People will think you're weak. When a man gives his opinion, he's a man. When a woman gives her opinion, she's a bitch. Betty Davis. And from the Bitch Manifesto, 1968, A bitch is an unapologetic badass, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. And I like this one a lot. We are the granddaughters of witches they couldn't burn. We're bombarded. We're bombarded with this message of showing vulnerability is a weakness. It's in our movies, our books, our myths, and our advertisements. The pressure, admittedly, is far less gender specific than it was 50 years ago, because now it's being applied equally to all genders, all people. Showing vulnerability means you're weak. But here's the problem. When we close down our vulnerability, yeah, we're shielded from hurt, but we're also shielded from love, intimacy, and connection. These come through the same door. When we close the door by not showing that we're human, we have feelings, and that we're vulnerable, we also close the door to love and connection. You can't receive love by hiding your feelings. When we make ourselves strong, when we toughen up, when we harden up to protect ourselves from being hurt, what happens is that love can't come in because the door's not open. Without vulnerability, relationships struggle. Vulnerability at its core says, here I am, my frayed edges, my secrets, my fears, my affection. Please be careful, they're precious. In return, that kind of behavior invites a response of, oh, I see you. It's okay. You're safe. And here I am. It can build trust, closeness, and a sense of belonging. Relationships won't thrive without it. Vulnerability is experiences of people and their uncertainty. This is terrifying at times, and occasionally we get hurt. Relationship pain is an unavoidable part of being human. But a trusting, close sense of belonging cannot occur in a relationship without showing that you are human. I believe that you leave way too much love on the table when you don't show your vulnerability. It's there and it's available to you, but we leave it on the table. Okay, so by now you probably know my answer to today's question. Is vulnerability a weakness or a strength? So if you agree, let's all put showing vulnerability on your ought list. What's an ought list? Okay, this is the list of things that you know deep down in your gut you ought to be doing regularly. And I bet I can just rattle off some that are probably on your ought list. I ought to exercise more. I ought to eat healthy food. I ought to pay attention. I ought to ask for help. I ought to floss every night. I ought to thank people. I ought to be grateful for my life's blessings. I ought to consume less plastic. And I ought to increase my charitable giving. Now, on this last Sunday of March, I'm asking you to add one more thing to your ought list. You ought to show vulnerability. We don't always get around to working on our ought list. And when you don't do things on your ought list, the consequences, they're not immediate. This is why it's so easy to put stuff off and not do the oughts. We all know that you can put things off of this list indefinitely. The negative consequences of not doing your oughts take time to manifest, but they show up. If you don't exercise, you're going to begin to struggle with routine activities. If you don't pay attention, you're going to be accident prone. If you don't ask for help, you're going to waste a lot of times doing things wrong. If you don't floss, you will help your dentist pay for that European vacation. But there's a difference from your other oughts and your ought list of including now vulnerability. If you don't show vulnerability, the door to love and trust stays closed. Here's what can happen. You lose the potential of having deep, meaningful, loving relationships. Sure, you don't get hurt when you never show vulnerability, because a rock feels no pain and an island never cries. But if you don't work on showing vulnerability, I say the rest of your oughts don't matter. I quoted my yoga teacher from time to time, and today's warrants a great repetition. The quality of our life is determined by the focus of our attention. Quality of our life is determined by the focus of our attention. What we pay attention to, what we practice, what we work on regularly determines the quality of our life. You want a stronger body? Exercise. You want fewer accidents? Pay attention. You want to keep your teeth? Floss. You want relationships that are based on love, trust, and compassion? All you have to do is show up and say, here I am. Here are my frayed edges, my secrets, my fears, my affection. Be careful. They're precious. If you use your vulnerability as a strength and practice it regularly, your life will include more loving relationships. It's only the giving that makes you what you are. So is vulnerability a strength or a weakness? Let's close with a quote from Brené Brown, who is arguably the world's leader in research on shame, vulnerability, and courage. She writes, "Owning our story can be hard, but not nearly as difficult as spending our lives running from it. Embracing your vulnerabilities is risky, but not nearly as dangerous as giving up on love and belonging and joy. The experiences that make us the most vulnerable. Only when we are brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of our light." Amen, and blessed be.